Welcome to this edition of the Purity Post. My name is Jonathan Daugherty, and I'm the director of Be Broken Ministries, a national outreach whose mission is healing sexual brokenness by God's grace, one story at a time. This is the second post in a four-part series on the 4 pillars of purity, a book I wrote outlining the fundamental principles that we teach in our ministry on how to live a life of sexual integrity. The first pillar we looked at previously was profess the struggle, all that's entailed in confession and brutal honesty about one's weakness with sexual lust. In this post, I want us to unpack some of the second pillar, understand triggers. Every man we have ever helped in our ministry has been wounded in childhood. There are numerous ways in which these wounds are manifested. It could be exposure to porn, sexual abuse, shaming messages from parents, siblings, or friends, and all other sorts of trauma that a child simply doesn't know how to process. And because these wounds were never adequately addressed, these men eventually discovered their sexuality as a soothing escape from the pain of life. In order to ever progress forward in living a life of sexual integrity, a person must face the underlying trauma and wounds that played a significant role in steering them to sexually unhealthy patterns. This pillar of purity is often very painful to engage, and it's usually very helpful to seek out professional counseling to best sift through all the wounds and begin the healing process. Understanding triggers is somewhat of a multifaceted venture. There are historical wounds that need to be addressed that were part of laying the foundation for getting bound up in sexual acting out. But there's also dealing with the present patterns of ritual. These can and need to be addressed simultaneously. If you only focus on healing from past wounds, you'll likely increase acting out in response to the pain that it stirs up. But if you only focus on present patterns of addiction, you'll never heal from those deep wounds of the past. Again, counseling can be very helpful in this process. Now, for help in dealing with present patterns, let me recommend you start by taking a look at the internal and external influences, or triggers, that tend to set you up for sexual acting out. To determine your internal triggers, start by exploring the old Alcoholics Anonymous acronym HALT. Hungry, angry, lonely, and tired. I've also added bored and stressed to the list. The way to use this list is to think about the ways in which you typically act out, and then ask yourself, which of these feelings is most present prior to acting out? For instance, one of my biggest triggers is stressed. Knowing this, I can now address my feelings of stress and work to alleviate the stress, thereby decreasing the chance that I progress any further down the road to acting out. In many ways, this pillar of understanding triggers is about self-awareness, knowing your weaknesses and learning to deal with them more appropriately. External triggers would include any people, places, or even unpredictable circumstances that you encounter that seek to lead you to act out sexually. So you need to assess your friendships, your hangouts, and learn to be prepared even for those circumstances that you have no control over, ready to run and resist at a moment's notice. Let me close this post by sharing with you what I believe recovery is really all about. You see, some people might tell you that recovery is about you becoming strong, maybe even strong enough to walk right into a tempting situation and not be affected by it. I think that's baloney. In fact, I believe the Bible has a label for such an individual: a fool. No, I believe that recovery is about us fully acknowledging our weaknesses so that the power of Christ may rest upon us. God tells us in His Word that His power is made perfect in weakness. So may we stop trying to be strong, and instead, through the process of understanding triggers, fully acknowledge our weaknesses. When we do, we invite the very resurrection power of Jesus Christ into our brokenness and begin to see the paradox that is recovery, that when I'm weak, then I'm strong. Will you join me in courageously exploring your weaknesses? I hope so. It's the only way to break through to a life of integrity. Thanks for watching this edition of the Purity Post. If you'd like more resources, please visit BeBroken.com or call our toll-free number at 1-800-49-PURITY. Keep pressing on.